In the Scriptures, Mary is not mentioned when her son
institutes the Holy Eucharist. Now that we are called to meditate on that institution in the Rosary's Mysteries of Light, the Church has made official what the faithful have felt throughout the Church's history, that there exists between the second person of the Holy Trinity, the Word, who took his flesh from Mary to become man in the Incarnation, a profound link between Mary and the Eucharist. The flesh that she gave for the body of her Son is the same flesh and blood now glorified, which the Son now commands us to take, eat, and drink. For this reason alone, if we needed any more, Mary is present with us at every Eucharist. And indeed, every Eucharistic prayer in the Mass makes prominent mention of her under her title of Mother of God, or as the Eastern churches would put it, the Theotokos. So to grow in our love of communing with the body and blood of the Lord, Mary must be our primary teacher, because she incarnates perfectly the response of an individual as God enters the temple of our human body to sanctify us and prepare us for our ultimate entry into the divine life of the Trinity in heaven. How does she teach us? In the best way possible, not by speaking so much as by doing. She is a woman of continuous prayer, as seen in her awaiting the descent of the Holy Spirit, surrounded by the apostles, praying as one with them. And so she prays as one with us, as we see her imaged on the sanctuary now. Let us ask ourselves, what must her communions with the Lord have been like during the Mass, before her assumption into heaven, when she received the very body that she had given to her Son and drunk his blood that had emerged from her own veins, now glorified, and in its turn now nourishing the very source, from the very source of divine life. What an incomparable union of the God-man with the woman who was and is his mother. Every Eucharist that she took part in profoundly deepened her understanding of and living out of her divine motherhood. A woman once cried out when Jesus was preaching, "Blessed is the womb that bore you and the breasts that gave you to suck." Doubly blessed for having given human life to her Son, and now indwelt by that very life, now glorified, and able to transform into the divine all who would receive him, so that they might be born again to new life. Mary had already received that new life at her Immaculate Conception. We can only ponder to what new heights? Communion in her Son's body and blood, her singular redemption in her Son. Heights that also help us to abandon ourselves into the Eucharist, because it is a mystery which must and does transcend our understanding. The very fact that the God-man was formed in her womb gave Mary a privileged insight into how the Lord can enter into us to make us ready for union in the Godhead. We say at the end of the Eucharistic prayer, through him, with him, in him, as it concludes at every Mass. Mary can, with total authority, say to us, do whatever he tells you. And she can say this not only by witnessing to the indwelling of God within her, but by her also witnessing to the miracle of Cana, when Christ turned water into wine, which only served to prefigure the miracle that happens at every Mass, when the Holy Spirit turns bread into the living body and the wine into the living blood of Christ. Because Christ said, do this in memory of me. And so we listen to Mary and we do whatever he tells us. So when we do the Eucharist, if we can put it that way, we are following in Mary's response to God. From the moment of her conception, she always did what God wanted of her. From the moment she was conceived in St. Anne's womb. And at the Annunciation, let it be done to me according to your word. Because Mary had an instinctive appreciation of the power of God's creating word. She no doubt read, let there be light, and there was light. And so when Jesus said, this is my body given for you, behold, he says, here am I. I come to do your will. And by us eating his body and drinking his blood, we too are empowered to do his will. Because now, when we receive the holy body and blood of Christ, we are one with him, one in body, one in spirit with him. Now, after the Eucharist, when we have received that, surely only one will exists between us, because in the Eucharist, I too and you too are united, body and soul, with him. So there's only one will exists anymore, his will in us. And so we can truly say that the covenant God the Father made with Abraham all those thousands of years ago is now lived out truly and completely. Because God said to him, as he did to all Israel, and he says to the church now, I will be your God, and you will be my people. Perfectly one in the reconciliation that Christ has won for us in the flesh and blood given to us by the ever-glorious Virgin Mary. Ave Maria.